Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Urgent alert. Ex-Secret Service agent claims it's worse than people know. One of Obama's former Secret Service agents recently smelled a rat. What he discovered inside our government was so devastating, he only saw one option. He quit. What's worse, he fears what he found could affect your job, your neighborhood, and most importantly, your family, very soon. It's worse than people know, he said in a recent interview, and I'm not trying to scare you either. We, too, share his concerns. This is why we've devoted the better part of 3 years collecting solutions for nearly all problems created by intrusive governments, and we've succeeded. Go to hiddensecrets1.info to check out all the details. Our panel of insiders have devised a legal but sneaky set of solutions to help you reclaim your privacy from the NSA, opt out of Obamacare, and make a bundle from little-known investments and small business opportunities. Simply visit hiddensecrets1.info. That's hiddensecrets1.info.
FSN. It's about what's next. In America today, you got to be crazy to want to work or start a business because the government's made it so profitable, so comfortable for you to just sit home, watch TV, and have fun. Here to talk about it, Allyn Root. Wayne, welcome back.
Hey, Kerry. Actually, we're on right now, right after your big event. I was so honored to be invited to speak there, and what a great time was had by all, and you just happened to pick my hometown of Las Vegas, so thank you. What a great time.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you for honoring us with your presence, and, you know, it's not every day we get a best-selling author to speak to our small, humble gathering, but you really blew everybody away. It was an amazing time.
It was, aptly named, Liberty Mastermind. Well, it was a mastermind of really smart people who had great ideas and great financial, economic whizzes and gurus, and I had a great time. So I'm proud to say I attended.
Well, you know, we all really took a lot away from it, and hey, you know, fellow New Yorker and struggling entrepreneur, and I feel like we're all endangered species in this country, you know?
Well, at least we got one victory over the weekend. I don't know if you saw it, but CNN is canceling Piers Morgan's show. And Piers said, before they fire me, I quit. And he said, America fired me, America turned on me because I don't like guns. That's what he said. Well, I'd like to think I had a small part in that because I was on Piers' show last year. It was a big interview. It was about 15 or 20 minutes long, which on national TV is an eternity. And the interview had nothing to do with guns. They went over the questions with me all day long, back and forth with the producers for tonight. Here's what we're going to ask you. Get ready for these 5 questions. Tell us what you'll say. And then when the time came, live on national TV, they tried to sandbag me and make the whole interview about guns. Total surprise. The topic was never even on the producer's mind during the day. Suddenly I get on the air. The whole interview is about guns and how guns kill people and what a terrible person Wayne Root is for supporting guns. And I beat him in his own game, even though I had no idea that was the topic and I was unprepared. I just had a bunch of statistics to rattle off, and I think I, kicked his butt pretty badly on national TV, and he was embarrassed. And I hope that was the start of the beginning of the end over this gun issue for Piers Morgan. Goodbye, Piers. Have a good life.
He had no audience. I mean, even the dyed-in-the-wool progressives and lefties couldn't put up with the guy. He was just boring, and he was about to get indicted in England for hacking people's phones, so they had to get rid of him. He became a real liability to the left, but he really had no talent. And, if you're going to talk about issues like guns, it might help if you read that little document, however meaningless it might be to the left, called the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, right?
Well, yes, but you don't even need to do that. To be honest with you, Kerry, all you have to do is match up the statistics of the United States FBI with the Brits version of the FBI. I forgot the name.
Scotland Yard?
Yeah. No, it's not that. It's a different one. It's their home something security.
Mm-hmm.
And they put out statistics on violent crime in England, and the FBI puts out statistics on violent crime in the United States. And violent crime is 3.5 times worse in England, where no one owns a gun. Even the police, for the most part, don't have guns in England. And violent crime is 3.5 times worse than the United States of America. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
people must be running around England with butcher knives, like those two crazy Muslim terrorists who killed those two poor soldiers in the middle of the street one day a year ago. They must be running around with butcher knives and machetes and knives and hanging people, whatever it is. You can kill people in a lot of different ways, folks, than just using a gun. And if you ban guns, they find another way to kill you. Obviously, 3.5 times more ways to kill you than a gun in England.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you take out the gun-free zones and these urban violent zones like Chicago, like Washington, D.C., like New Orleans, you take out these violent cities in the U.S., the U.S. has a far lower murder rate than most countries in the world. That's the fact of the matter. The violent deaths are concentrated in very few cities in the U.S.
And don't lose sight, by the way, you're 100% correct, but don't lose sight of why that is. Those cities have gun control, so nobody who's honest and nice is armed. They're disarmed, and the criminals don't care about laws. So when you pass a law, it only affects nice people, honest people, law-abiding, legal people. It does not affect illegal immigrants and criminals and those who are, not listening to the law in the first place. It doesn't affect them. So what you have in America is a bunch of places where you have gun-free zones. You have killings, like the school in Connecticut. You have cities that are gun-free for all intents and purposes, and yet they're filled with guns in the hands of bad people, lots of crime. And then you have the rest of the country, as you mentioned, where there's almost no crime at all. Well, that rest of the country is heavily armed in the hands of good people, good citizens, legal citizens. And that's how you prevent crime. Put a gun in the hands of a good person, and you prevent crime. So it's kind of funny that, these liberals just fester on guns like they're the root of all evil, and they just don't understand that the statistics show the opposite.
Oh, yeah. It's, in places, and study after study has proven the fact where there's more guns, there's less crime. And you can prove it here in Florida, where I live. The number of murders taken place per capita is less than it was in, I believe, 1965. And the number of actual murders has dropped since they changed the gun laws and made it a shall issue carry state in 1987. There's less murders now than there was in 1987, and the population has doubled since 1987, or close to having doubled since 1987. But don't ever try to burden a progressive's mind with facts. They don't want to know about it, right?
Well, speaking of that, when I was at your Liberty Mastermind Symposium, do I have that whole name right? Liberty Mastermind Symposium? Yeah. When I was there over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, I quoted a lot of stats, a lot of facts that scare liberals. And, I'm a big gold guy. I'm a big believer in gold as the answer if you're going to have gigantic debt in your country or in the world. And so I quoted some sobering facts about debt, and I think everyone needs to hear them on your radio show as well, because, of course, you have thousands of listeners, most of whom did not have the time to come to your Liberty Mastermind Symposium this time. But hopefully in the future, more and more of them will show up, and you'll have thousands of people at the event instead of hundreds. But having said that, Obama's the biggest spender in world history. Fact. Obama is the biggest debt producer in world history. Fact. On track to add $12 trillion to the national debt, 3 times more than Bush in his 8 years as president. The marketable debt of the U.S. government, that's a term that the U.S. Treasury uses, marketable debt, has increased by 106% under Obama, from $5.7 trillion to $11.8 trillion of marketable debt. Obama has managed to accumulate more marketable debt in his first 5 years in office than all the presidents who preceded him combined. Under Obama, the national debt now exceeds the entire output of the U.S. economy. Obama is not only the first president in history to produce 4 consecutive years of deficits over $1 trillion, but the media never mentions those 4 years are more than produced by all other presidents in history combined. Student loans, by the way, on track in 2 to 3 years to be double that of credit card debt, which is why total public and private debt in advanced economies across the globe is 30% higher now than when we had the Lehman Brothers financial crisis that almost ended the entire world economy in 2008. And then the most important fact, the most sobering fact of all, is that interest rates are so low. I mentioned this at your Liberty Mastermind event. Interest rates are so much lower than they were when Obama took office and also when George Bush took office in the year 2001, that it just frightens you, because if interest rates are going up, and a lot of experts, including one I saw this morning in the news, thinks interest rates are headed for a long up period, what will happen to the American economy when the debt is now 75% bigger than the year 2001, but in those days the interest rate was 3%. Now it's 75% bigger, and the interest rate is basically zero for all intents and purposes. You start to raise it to normal historical rates of 3 to even 6%, and you're going to have a debt interest payment so big it'll push out all other aspects of the American budget. There will be no money for Social Security, no money for Medicare, no money for anything, welfare checks, entitlements, building bridges, you name it. There'll be no money left. So if interest rates go up, Kerry, game over for the United States of America.
Yeah, and obviously a default is coming as well.
Well, but I don't think you're ever going to see. In other words, for all intents and purposes, it will be a default, but we're never going to default. So rather than to hide the default, because it will be, I agree with you, a default, a de facto one, but to hide it, it'll be massive taxes and it'll be massive inflation, because the only way you could pay back the debt without defaulting is to pay it back in much smaller dollars, much inflated dollars that are worthless. That's the only way you could pay it back. If you can get inflation to the point where a loaf of bread is $1 billion and you owe a few trillion, that's no big deal. It's a few loaves of bread, right? So that's going to be the attempt that I see the U.S. government doing. You don't actually believe they would allow America to default publicly, right?
No. It'll be a default in all but name.
Yeah,
let's face it. It'll be tantamount to a default because, it's inflation is effectively a default. So,
right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
by the way, just so everybody understands listening, it's not just the default of the country, it's a default of your life savings. If inflation's high enough, think about it. If you work for 40 years, and during those 40 years you put aside $1 million, you're one of the lucky ones who saves $1 million, and suddenly the government, to avoid a default, pushes inflation to such heights that, like I said, a loaf of bread, let's say instead of $1 billion, let's not exaggerate, let's say a loaf of bread is $1 million, and you saved $1 million, your life savings is gone. All you got is a loaf of bread, when in the past, that $1 million would have bought you, security for the last 20 years of your life. So that's what inflation will do to the average person. It's devastating. It's staggering what it'll do to your life. And that's what they're going to have to do, Kerry. There's no choice, because you can't pay back this debt. In 1,000 years, it'll never be paid back if they don't inflate money in this country.
Yeah, that reminds me of an old joke my parents used to tell during the 70s, and this guy, goes and gets himself frozen, and he gives his account to a stockbroker, and then like 40 years later, he gets defrosted, and he goes and first thing he does, he goes and calls a stockbroker and says, "Hey, how did we do?" And the guy says, "Oh, you did incredible. The market was great. You've got $680 million in your account." And he says, "Oh, that's just terrific." And then the operator comes on and says, "Sir, you went overtime on your phone call. That'll be another $380 million." And the guy has a heart attack and dies.
Well, as I pointed out at your event, Kerry, there is an answer to that. I think it's gold. If people think that's kind of a joke or an exaggeration, the story you just told, or the story I told, will bread ever be $1 million? Well, guess what? It really has happened, because since 1913, here's the stat I told everyone at the event. I told them that if you had $1 million in 1913, today it's worth $20,000. And if you had $1 million, what I should say is $1 million in dollars kept in your bank or kept in your mattress, today it's worth $20,000. If you had the same million in gold in 1913, today it's worth $62 million and change. About $62,500,000. So you're talking about the difference between $20,000 in dollars or $62 million in gold. So gold doesn't really make you rich. What it does is it keeps you even with inflation. And 100 years later, just being kept even with inflation would turn your million into 62 million. But the dollar, which never kept you even with inflation, dropped dramatically, and so your million is worth 20,000. What an amazing difference. So you don't have to tell stories or jokes or exaggerate. The truth is so stark, over 100 years, a century long. I think it proves the place you want to be is gold.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Our sponsors at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium, Owings Metal, so many of the people that I deal with, I hate to say I'm a gold bug. I mean, it's had a derogatory connotation all these years, but really, it's where you need to be, and not all investments are good for all time. In the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, stocks were where it was at. And for the past year and a half, stocks. But gold is going to be the investment. There's no question. We only have to hope, Wayne, that the government doesn't want to try to take it away from you.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. All they can do is they could do what FDR did, which is ban private ownership of gold. That could happen, although I doubt it. It's a different world and a different time and place than the 1930s or the 1940s. But they can't ban rare collectible coins, and so I think people's portfolio should be kind of a combination of both. There's nothing they can do. Even FDR didn't go near rare collectible coins. So I think there's some other options for people in this world, but I don't believe they could ever ban gold, to be honest with you, Kerry, private ownership of gold, because it's just in too many hands. India's been trying to stop Indians from buying any more gold. It didn't work.
That's been effective.
Hey, ineffective in this world.
And let's just talk about three things the government has tried to do recently that they didn't exactly get a real warm reception from you. Number one, they put out a bid for a nationwide database of license plates from the scanners, both public and private, in garages, TransUnion, as well as police departments. And the public got wind of it, and there was an uproar. Oops, sorry, Department of Homeland Security, we weren't really serious about it. Number two, the FCC was going to place monitors in newsrooms, in newspapers, just to make sure that you were getting all the news that you should. Oops, another uproar. I don't think so. No, we weren't really serious about that. The full FCC didn't even vote upon it. And then number three, and what's happening in Connecticut, is military-style assault rifles, of which they think there's 350,000, and millions of high-capacity magazines. They passed a law against that a few months ago because of the Newtown school massacre. 50,000 people lined up to register, but evidently as many as 300,000 people didn't and have no plans to register. So they made 300,000 people, up to 300,000 people, criminals. And, oops, mass civil disobedience of the law. What do we do now? So I think we're reaching a tipping point where people have just had enough of this government, Wayne. What do you think?
Well, I think you can look at what's happening or what happened over the weekend in Ukraine to know what the future might hold for President Barack Obama. I think he's a criminal. I think he needs to be impeached. I think he needs to be held accountable for the crimes of the IRS scandal, which is massive, by the way, and the media won't report on it. And Obama refuses to let any real investigation go on. He appoints an investigator who's a giant Obama campaign donor. I mean, it's just unbelievable what a banana republic we're living in at the moment. But history will not be kind to what's happening around us. And so, Obama looks invincible and no one thinks you can impeach him. Well, guess what? The president of Ukraine looked invincible when the Olympics started 2 weeks ago. And suddenly an uprising started and more people joined, and he continued to look invincible, and he ordered the police to shoot them, and they didn't disperse. Even though they had no guns facing police officers with guns picking them off, they wouldn't move. And eventually, they forced the president to flee his own presidential palace. Now, orders went out this morning for his arrest on charges of murder. He was impeached over the weekend by his own Congress, and the people are taking tours of his presidential palace where they find that he spent $75 million on a mansion when his salary is $25,000 a year. Did you hear what I just said? $25,000 a year, and he spent $75 million. Now,
sounds like our government.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. The American people don't notice that Obama does the same things. He spent $600 million to build a lousy website. That's your money, folks. The difference is in Ukraine. I'm sure he literally stole the money from the people's account and put it into his own account and built a mansion. That's outright theft. But in America, it's more subtle. See, I've never accused Obama of taking money out of an account belonging to the American people and putting it in his own account. No, he just takes your money and spends it on things he wants. So he wanted a website, and he wanted Obamacare. He spent $600 million on a website that was defective. Now it's going to be another $500 million to fix it. That's $1.1 billion of your money. And how about this one, Kerry? The people are mad in Ukraine because he spent $75 million on a mansion, but Obama spent $375 million on the remodeling of his office in the White House. Now, I don't know how you could spend $375 million on an office. I assume it's his whole wing, but still, I think $376 million is the exact number on remodeling of the White House. That's your money, folks. That's as bad as what happened in the Ukraine. This guy is a criminal. He gave a no-bid contract to his wife's Princeton black alumni buddy to build a website that was defective. I can't tell you how many crimes have been committed if this was the private sector. If a private CEO said, if you like your insurance, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep him or her. And then you couldn't, he'd go to prison for decades. We need to throw this guy out on his butt.
Hey, and not to mention all the travel and the vacations, and that they're spending $500,000 a week on a music budget, live music, and parties in the White House, Wayne. It's just outrageous. The imperial president.
I didn't know that one, by the way. I didn't know that figure.
Yeah. This is what I heard. They've got guys coming to the White House performing like they don't just come for free,
Well, as I told your crowd at the Liberty Mastermind Symposium, I think the scariest thing of all is what Obama passed last week. There's two aspects to it. One, or maybe now it's been 2 weeks, I guess, but one aspect of it is that, he woke up one morning and said, I'm going to change Obamacare. Now it doesn't apply to corporations or businesses with 50 to 99 employees. And you can't do that. That breaks the law. It violates the Constitution. President doesn't make law. Congress makes law. He can't just wake up and change the law. It's his own law, and he changed it. Well, you can't do that, folks. Only a tyrant in a communist nation does that. Well, guess what? You may be living in a communist nation with a tyrant named Obama. And number two, he put a asterisk with it. Yeah, you might have 99 employees, so now you don't have to comply with Obamacare, but you first have to swear under oath in front of the IRS that you didn't fire anybody to get down to 99 to avoid Obamacare, which puts government in charge of overseeing hiring and firing, which is the central tenet of communism and the Communist Manifesto. Folks, it's happening right now. A tyrant is taking control of the United States of America. Wake up.
Yeah, it's rather remarkable. Well, on that note, Wayne, we got to get moving. Just give us your site again and your book. And your new book is coming out, too, shortly.
Yeah. The book is The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide. Best place to get it, of course, is Amazon.com or any fine bookstore, The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide. You can look for my new book in July. It's called The Murder of the Middle Class. My website is root4america.com. I've got lots of free commentaries there. And, Kerry, I've even got a free report for the first time ever. I've never done this. A free report for everybody. It's called Coined Freedom, and you can get it by calling 855-700-ROOT. 855-700-ROOT. An operator is standing by to give you my free report. 855-700-ROOT. Toll-free call. Free report. Doesn't cost you a thing. I think you'll find what's in it fascinating. 855-700-ROOT, just like my last name.
All right.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, and don't forget, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We've got a link to Wayne's site and sign up for the newsletter. Wayne, always a pleasure. We'll talk with you again real soon. Be well.
You got it. Thank you, Kerry. Thanks, everyone out there. God bless.
Warning, you might live in a no-constitution zone. It's the shocking story you won't see on TV. Depending upon where you live in the United States, you may no longer have constitutional rights. Politicians are quietly squeezing the middle class to micromanage you and extract your wealth. Want to see how? Watch the free video at noconstitutionzone.com. Soon, you'll have the last laugh by using these cultural contraband tricks and profit like a king. That's noconstitutionzone.com.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.